everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is founder of the Independence Lab, where she helps ambitious graduates navigate the transition from school to career with clarity and confidence. Brianne's journey is anything but conventional. She went from intern to managing editor at a New York publishing house in just 1 year, and later rose from employee to VP at a leading digital marketing agency, working with major brands like Aramark and BASF, right? So our work focuses on what she calls the good student trap, how the habit that makes you successful in school can quietly hold you back in your career. Brianne, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, Joy. I'm so glad to be here.
All right, so I want us to, dive into your early years, right? Take us back to your 20s. So, what did success look like to you when you were just starting out?
Oh, well, when I was a senior in college, I felt like I was so behind because
Hmm.
all of my peers were announcing their internships or their jobs with Google and Vogue, all these big names. And I was like, who told you to apply? When did you apply? I did not have anything lined up. So I just started from this place of feeling really, really behind everybody else. And I felt like they had all gotten this map that I just totally did not get. So I ended up taking this internship that I wasn't really excited about. It was like a local magazine, and I was like, all right, just to get it to graduate. But then I got a phone call and said, hey, I think that you should talk to this woman. She works at a publishing house in New York City, and I think you'd be a great fit. So I have this phone call with this woman, and she's an editor at a magazine, which was my dream job at the time. And I completely blew it. Completely blew it. I she asked me a question. She asked me a question and I just had not prepared well enough. So I did what anybody would do and started to panic. But then what I actually said was, you know what? Can we come back to that question? So we continued the interview, and I said at the end, I said, I'm ready to answer your question. I had taken my time to calm myself down and figure out what my answer was. I answered it. We hung up, and I was like, I blew it. But it turns out that she was so impressed with how I handled myself during that interview, my emotional intelligence skills, my resilience, my self awareness. And she actually created an internship for me. So I got to move to New York City and do this internship at a magazine publishing house, my dream job. And that to me was success. It was not only getting my dream role and moving to where I wanted to be, but utilizing what made me me and my emotional intelligence along the way. So that was success number one. And then I worked really, really hard when I was there. And I made sure that I was visible along the way, meaning I made sure that people were seeing this hard work that I was putting in and coming up with ideas and saying what I wanted out loud. And so I was able to get a promotion to editor, and then I was able to get a promotion to managing editor all within 1 year. And that is kind of like the second in charge at the magazine. So that to me was very early success when I had started out so far behind.
Okay, I must say, first of all, it just shows that you are goal oriented, right? You know what you want out of life and you went for it, right? Not
Yes.
many people have such characteristics, so that's impressionable actually. And thinking back at that time, right? Were you following the traditional advice that we were all given, or did you start noticing gaps in it early?
Yeah, I was following that advice. It was work really hard, keep your head down, right? And so there was one time I remember my boss coming over to my desk at 7 p.m. because I just was working, working, working. And she's like, what are you doing here? Go home. Like, like, so in my head, I'm like, okay, the more I work, the harder I work, the better, but that wasn't really what moved you along in your career. So what I started to notice is, it's not so much me being my head down and working really hard. It is more so having great ideas or speaking up in meetings or saying what you want. So when I went in for my review, I actually said to them, this is my dream. I want to be managing editor. I want to be this bigger, have this bigger role here. I'm dedicated and I want this. I said it out loud, and that I think helped propel me because I was able to jump over some of the people that had been there for years to get that role.
Hmm. Okay, right. Now, I want us to dive into your work now, right? So, you talk about the good student trap, right? What is it, and why are, high achieving people actually or especially vulnerable to it?
Yes, I find that so many young women, especially, but it
Mm,
could be anybody, we are taught certain things in school that are going to get you a good grade, help you graduate. Making sure that you raise your hand before you talk, or that things need to be absolutely perfect.
mm,
Those are not going to move you along. So there are 5 things that I consider good student traps. So what are they? Number one, perfectionism.
mm,
This is, if you think about it, you need to write a paper in school. You want to make sure it's as close to perfect as possible to get that A, right? When you are in the workplace, you cannot spend oodles of time making sure things are perfect. Otherwise,
mm,
people are going to be getting ahead of you. They are going to be completing things before you. Your clients are going to get angry that you are not showing them your work. So
mm,
you need to flip that and say, okay, 70%, good to go. At least get that first draft moving along. So number one is perfectionism. Number two, waiting to be called on, right? Raising your hand in class and the teacher calls on you. It cannot be like that at work. If you are invited to a table at your job, if you are invited into a meeting, it is your responsibility to use your voice. Somebody taught me that, and it is great advice. So do not wait to be called on. It is going to hold you back. You need to share your thoughts. You need to share your ideas. You need to ask questions, right? Okay. So the extra credit mindset, that's number 3. And that's kind of what I was talking about when I was saying
mm,
I was staying late and just working with my head down. I thought if I could take on more, if I could take on more, they'll know that I'm a hard worker. If I can take on more work, that extra credit, no, that's not what's going to happen. If you're just taking on more work, they're just going to pile on more work and they're going to say, oh, we need her in this role. She does so much. But you're going to get passed over for somebody who's doing more visible work, more impactful work, but less of it, right? So
mm.
extra credit, not necessarily great.
Okay.
Num yeah. Do you want me to go on with the last two?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right. Number 4, the approval addiction.
Mm,
We needed the teachers to tell us, you're doing a good job. Here's your A, here's your A plus, right? We needed that approval. You're not going to get that in the workplace. Your manager is not tracking you down to tell you good job most of the time. So we need to make sure that we are bringing our own approval to the table and asking for feedback when we need it. You need to create those conversations. Okay. And then the last one
mm,
is agreeability. So in a class project, you want to be collaborative. You want to make sure that you are not hard or difficult to work with. Now, I'm not saying that you should be difficult to work with in the workplace, but what I am saying is that you don't have to agree with everything. If you guys are brainstorming or trying to make a decision, you can bring your own opinion to the table, even if it is different from everybody else's. Because when you contribute to that pool of knowledge, it's important, right? We need different mindsets, different views that are being contributed to that. So, when you contribute your own thoughts, people start seeing you as a leader or somebody who is not afraid to speak up versus somebody who just agrees with everything. And that kind of gets to be invisible along the way. So, those are the
mm.
5 things that will actually make you fall into the good student trap at work, which is not a good thing.
Right. Wow. Okay, I would like us to go over it, right? Perfectionism.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't take notes, okay,
It's
but I
I'll name them real quick. So yeah, perfectionism, waiting to be called on, extra credit, approval, and agreeability.
actually. So yes, I feel like I'm learning a whole lot, right? So still on career, right? But I want us to touch on identity, confidence, and reinvention, right? So how does people pleasing actually show up in the workplace, and why is it so dangerous long term?
Yeah, it's something that you have to realize there's this wide gap between being
Mm,
invisible and influential, right? So when you're a people pleaser, it tends to make you invisible, right? But if you are, like I said, bringing your ideas, bringing your thoughts, bringing your opinions, even if they are different, you start to be looked at as influential. And that
mm,
is what you want if you are trying to build your career. Now, we're not saying like, make your boss mad every day. Don't do that.
right.
But the point is that you need to be able to have the confidence to speak up and bring your thoughts to the table.
Mm. All right, wow. So I think I get that one. It's about, saying saying your mind, right? Saying whatever you think. I mean, you don't have to agree with what everyone says because that would be people pleasing. So if you have a particular idea or something you want to communicate, make sure you always communicate your mind or what you think about a particular subject that they are discussing, right? You don't have to be too shy or you don't have to always agree, even when you know it doesn't resonate with you, right? That way, you actually stand out from the crowd, literally, and you can build your career on that. So, yes, talking
Exactly.
about, thank you for that one, actually. Thank you, Brian. So, yes, talking about transitioning from school to real life, right? So, what's the biggest shift that, someone needs to make when moving from academic success to real world success?
Something that I say is curiosity beats credentials. So in
Mm,
school, again, you have grades, you have a syllabus, it's very planned out for you, right? When you are looking for a job or looking for a promotion, what you want to showcase isn't necessarily those hard skills or those credentials because that's kind of baseline, right? Everybody needs to have them. Of course, they need to be on your resume. But what you really need to start showcasing is your emotional intelligence skills. And I think one of the ways that you do that is through your curiosity. And what I mean by that is really putting yourself into situations and into scenarios where you are learning something new, you are showing what you've learned, and then you are showcasing that on your resume and during interviews and during talks with your manager for promotions. So, we're
mm,
living in this time of AI, for example. You cannot go into an interview anymore not having any idea about how to use AI. You have to go in and you have to say, I took the initiative to learn this on my own. So I am a self-starter. I was curious enough to learn this. This is what I've learned. This is the impact it can have. And I'm going to talk to you about how I can do it for your company or in this new role. So it isn't so much about the credentials that you've earned, like your GPA, your major, your grades, your extracurriculars. It's not so much about listing those anymore. It's developing this mindset of curiosity, going through those
mm,
steps, and then showcasing it to get what you want.
mm. Wow. Okay, it's about developing the mindset of curiosity, going through the steps and showcasing it, right? So yes, thank you, Brian. And before I go to my final question, I just want to ask this one, right? If someone feels stuck or overlooked, right, early in their careers, what do you think is the first thing they should change about themselves or their idea, right, on career?
Hmm. It's hard because people have different personalities. For me, I have been more of an extrovert, but people are introverted. And so I don't want to be necessarily saying, oh, you have to go out and you have to start saying all these things and you have to be loud. But you need to figure out how you can showcase your impact. So you can
Mm,
do that in a couple different ways. For me, the way that I did that is I would say probably twofold. I wasn't afraid to speak up with ideas because people love hearing new ideas and contributing in that sense when you're like brainstorming and stuff. So speaking up in meetings. And then also putting myself into uncomfortable situations. So,
mm,
for example, I worked at a small company where it wasn't really anybody's actual job to do sales. And somebody needed to do it though, right? Somebody needed to get on a call and talk to people and make sure that they wanted to pay us money. And that seemed very scary to me at first. But I put myself out there and I did it. I did sales calls, and for 3 years, I sold the most at the company. I brought in more than $1 million. So that was something that was very uncomfortable to me at first, but it was a huge step forward in my career. That
mm,
was for me for being an extrovert. If you are an introvert and that is just so far out of your realm, there are certain ways that you can find to show your impact. So, going back to AI, for example, can you create a process where you are implementing AI to automate something that people do every day, takes them hours, it's repeated? Can you create a process that will eliminate those manual hours, save the company time, save them money, save people frustration? Can you document it and show the impact of it that way? And you can do all that in writing, even if you have to. So there are different ways, but the bottom line is figure out how you feel comfortable making an impact and go for it.
mm. Okay, yes, I would say thank you so much, Brian. Conversations like this are always so important, especially for young adults to navigate life, navigate your career, just do what's best for us without having to struggle, right? So that's why I love conversations like this. And it brings me to the final question I have for you today. I would love for you to give advice, right, to young adults right there. I mean, let me use you for example. If you could sit down with your 22-year-old self, what would you have told her? Right.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. I think about this all the time. But the thing that I would most recommend to young people right now, or to myself then, is to lean into they're called soft skills. I don't think they're soft. I think they're essential. Lean into those skill sets. So, self-awareness, understand yourself, understand your triggers, your strengths, your weaknesses, what you can get better at, what you love, how you can excel. Take time to think about it. Take time to understand yourself. That's just step number one. You don't even have to do a whole lot. Just give yourself space to think. And then step number or area number two would be like self-regulation. So when I was in that interview and totally bombed it, that moment of self-regulation literally changed my life. So understand how your body reacts to tough situations and how you can overcome them. And then social skills is the other part of that, right? So understanding how to be empathetic to, it sounds weird, but empathetic to your boss. What do they need? How can you help them? How can you make their lives easier? And then how can you be in a meeting and read the room and understand what needs to be said, who has power, what doesn't need to be said? Those
Right.
things are going to propel your career and frankly your life so much further than if you don't develop those skills.
Mm, right, mm. Okay, so yes, thank you, Brian. This has been an amazing conversation. And it moves me to the final segment of my podcast. It's called the rapid fire segment.
Oh,
Right. So you could either answer in a word or a phrase. So starting
okay.
now, what is one career habit people should unlearn immediately?
Mm, lifelong learning.
Hmm. All right, okay. So what is one skill that compounds over time more than anything else?
Communication skills.
Right, communication. And finally, what is a sign that you are on the right career path?
You're excited to go to work.
Hmm. Hey. Right. All right, Brianne. Thank you so much for this amazing episode. And yes, where can listeners get to, learn more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, so my website is theindependencelab.com. If you go there, there's tons of free resources. So for young people right now, I would highly recommend checking out the postgrad networking rubric. It has 60 plus categories of people that you can network with who want to help you. So go get that. It's there at theindependencelab.com. And then for daily updates, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on TikTok and Instagram at Brianne Independence Lab.
All right. Okay, Brian, thank you so much. And to my listeners, thanks for tuning in to Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episode. Once again, thank you, Brian. Do have a wonderful day ahead of you.
You too. Thank you so much, Joy.
All right, take care.